Parents, this is a message for you. As a homeschooler, I know you work hard for us. You have many different things to manage.
Our Thinking, Feeling, Willing program is your roadmap to a successful Waldorf homeschool journey. Gain the confidence you need to be the teacher your child wants and transform your homeschool experience. Homeschooling with Waldorf Essentials is one like no other. You not only have curriculum options, you can also add our Thinking, Feeling, Willing program onto your curriculum. What's in the Thinking, Feeling, Willing program? Rhythm, inner work, temperament, the Waldorf curriculum, learning and strengthening your skills in music, circle time, form drawing, handwork, painting, drawing, modeling, festivals, reading, writing, spelling, eurythmy and movement, and our bonus content. Something else you'll get when you join Waldorf Essentials that you will not find anywhere else is the community, and we all need that as homeschoolers.
This is your invitation to fill your cup. We know you're rooting for us. We are rooting for you too.
Okay, my friend, I'm so excited for everybody to be here today. This is my dear friend Andrea, and she is our 7th grade teacher at Seasons of 7. It's so amazing to me because you started in 4th grade, and here we go. I mean, I'm just really loving the progression that this goes. So, Andrea, I would love for you to introduce yourself, talk to us about sort of where you are, what you love, what your past has been like, and just sort of introduce yourself.
Great. Well, thank you. And hello. And Melissa, I am so excited to be here chatting with you today.
Me too. I was thinking, how long have we known each other? Like for a long time. At least
Jaden
6 years.
just turned 7 and he'll be 13 in a month.
Yep.
So yeah, 6 years.
That's so crazy.
It
It is my deepest joy that so many teachers and coworkers that we have at Seasons of 7 are people that I knew in real life before. Like that is my deepest joy. I get very choked up about that because I love this space of like watching you guys grow and bringing you guys with us. So go ahead.
connection, and relationship is everything in this world, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, I guess I'll start by saying a little bit about me. I came to Waldorf education, I think, through a fairly unusual route. I spent the bulk of my career in biomedical education, educating adults, namely doctors. And let me tell you, I much prefer working with children.
And headstrong doctors who think they're God.
Oh, yes. Yes. The cardiologists in particular.
Oh God. Oh man, I've had a few of those in my life. And so I'm like, nope, stop talking.
Yes. And then I found Waldorf when my son started attending a Waldorf preschool. And I immediately felt at home in that really nurturing, heart-centered environment where children were just allowed to be children.
Right.
Nothing was being pushed on them, but instead they were presented with these sweet little songs and stories, and they were drawn in, right, out of their own free will. And that energy, that style of teaching was so different than any other school I had ever seen before, and I was really intrigued. And then later, when I began homeschooling my son using Waldorf, and when I met you, Melissa, at the Waldorf Homeschool Co-op, I saw that this same method of leading children to discover the lessons for themselves out of their own curiosity works with children of all ages, not just the little ones.
It even works for moms, like kind of crazy.
And adults too. Maybe
Yeah.
I should have tried that with the doctors. And too, what I saw was that we as parents and teachers were just planting seeds that
Yeah.
sprout inside of a child's heart. And then when the time is right, those seeds ripen and the child will reach out naturally and absorb the lesson content all on their own.
Absolutely. There's a quote, and I cannot remember if it was David Kennedy who said it, or David Mitchell. There's so many Davids in Waldorf, but that a child is not a sponge, but they're a vessel, and we draw out what's needed when it's time.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and now that I'm going into my 4th year with Seasons of Seven, I'm still amazed at how that process works,
Right?
and too how beautifully the Waldorf curriculum um, meets the child at every stage of their development and really supports the learning process so that it's not this anxiety laden kind of fire hose of information
Right?
being blasted at them, but rather it's a gentle unfolding and a
Yeah,
real stepping into wonder and discover.
I completely agree. Completely agree. I love that. So I have a funny question. What made you, besides me pestering you, what made you decide to come and teach with us?
You know, when you offered me this position, I was really skeptical because I'm was very traditional Waldorf, no screens, no nothing. And I
Right.
thought, all these kids on a computer,
Right.
that's totally like the opposite of Waldorf. I didn't even see how it would work. But I thought, you know what? I love the curriculum so much, and I really see that there's a need for this. There's a lot of parents who are struggling, and I want to help. And so I thought, well, let's just give it a shot and see what happens.
That's how we
And
were in year one. We were like, let's just do it. Let's see what happens. It'll come together as it
let's
goes. And it
do
did.
it. And you know what happened? Beautiful connections and relationships formed through the screen, through the computer screen. I was blown away. I mean, it was within days, to be honest, that I fell in love with my students. And over the year, it just became so natural. I mean, of course, I wish I could like reach out and hug them,
And
or like
hug
we could play
everyone,
games,
right?
but yeah, the real heart connections are there, not only with me, with the students, but there's office hours with the parents. So I connected deeply with the
Right.
parents and the children with each other. We had kids who were even flying to go visit each other on vacations, and
I love that.
families who.
I definitely love that. And as Seasons of Seven grows, we're gonna have more like situations where we can all be together. But I think what's already been created is just so lovely. And that's really what I think sets Seasons of Seven apart from other programs, is that we're just like a schoolhouse. We're just not in the same
Mhm.
place. So
And I would even throw in that there is a certain level of intimacy that is possible when we're online that is not the case in a brick and mortar school. For
I would
example,
agree. Mhm.
yeah, you can see my home. I can see your home
Right, right.
where dogs and kids go through. You're in my kitchen, my yard, and I can see the kids and their families. I get to know their siblings and all of their pets, lots and lots of pets.
I'm sure these kids are like, look what I have. Yeah, I totally get that. I think it's interesting too, because we have that component of parent office hours that you don't get in a brick and mortar school. I mean, because ours are every week. So you have the opportunity every single week to talk to your teacher.
Every week to talk to our teacher. And let me say too that although I teach via pre-recorded video lessons, these were not recorded months in advance. They're
Right,
recorded days
right,
before
right.
you see them.
So that
So
you,
I take what parents tell me in office hours. I take what I observe in Zoom from talking to the students, looking at their work, and then I tweak my lessons to teach the kids in front of me and their current needs today, this week.
I love it. I love it. I know all of our teachers do that. They have a stock piece that they want to go with, but then they really adjust, as the time goes on. And I find that to be so beautiful, because it is just like a fluid classroom, just like a fluid classroom. So that's just beautiful.
Is
Very good. All right, my friend. So you also made a big move, right? So last year you were in California, like year 1 and 2, you were in California, and now you're in Ecuador.
Now I am in southern Ecuador near the border with Peru, and I live in a cottage in the foothills of the Andes Mountains.
It just sounds so picturesque, right? Like
It
All those,
is.
all those pictures you see on like I follow Earth pics on Instagram, and I'm like, that could be Andrea's house. Like, when I see those pictures, that's really lovely.
It's like living in a National Geographic photo. I have to say, I love it here. I'm really, really happy.
I am so glad. I am so, so glad. So let's jump into like who is ready for class 7. So age wise, and maybe talk a little bit about some kids that maybe seem like, because as moms we're always like, I don't know if my kid's ready for this. Like ones that maybe they have ASD or they have some kind of spectrum issue. How do you place them, and what do you do with them? So first, let's talk about who's ready for class 7.
Well, the beauty of Waldorf curriculum is that regardless of each individual child's skill with, say, math or reading, you
Mhm.
really place the child according to their age developmentally, because main lesson, meaning the subjects that we're bringing, are really what speaks to the spirit of the child.
Right.
So the class 7 is for the 13-year-old who is 13 or will be turning 13 this year. And mainstream media often depicts 13-year-old in a negative light, right? They're moody and they're dressed in black and holed up in their
Okay.
room. And they do come out, they like criticize and lash out at everyone. But I'd like to present a different image of the beautiful 13-year-old. That there is separation going on, as separation from the parents and family specifically, as this new individual being is emerging. And the child is really turning inward, kind of like a caterpillar going into a cocoon. But this is not a negative thing. It's very natural and a necessary phase of development, because they're turning inward to really examine their inner world that's filled with strong emotions, yes, but there's also developing critical thinking and the ability to be objective, to take on more responsibility. The 13-year-old is really ready to explore and discover the world in ways that just weren't possible before. And this can be a really deeply beautiful and meaningful year, as the 13-year-old really, for the very first time, is stepping onto that path of becoming the beings they were destined to be.
You can get a little glimpse of who they're going to be, little glimpse, and we really have to just allow that unfolding.
Exactly. And maybe parents of soon to be 13-year-olds, you might have noticed changes over the summer where, as they're becoming who they're meant to be, it begins to with their bodies. They are shaping their bodies into their own image rather than the one the parents projected onto them. For
Right.
example, my son cut off his long
Oh,
curls. Oh, you should see him now,
oh my
looking
God.
very much 13. He sprouted up several inches, and I've seen these same patterns in my kids in my class that I've been having home visits with. Big physical changes going on as they take those first steps.
It's so interesting because I do see, like, depending on the temperament and how that, like, who that child is, some of them really do just blossom, and others, they're blossoming in ways that we probably just don't see because we're
Exactly.
struggling with them, right? So it is our job to be able to stand back and go, what am I not seeing? How can I see this child differently? Because if we're in this struggle all the time, we're not going to see those beautiful changes. We're just going to be frustrated. And so much of it is
Absolutely.
us. Like, so much of it is
So
us. And how
much.
that vision that you're saying, that vision we had for them versus that vision that they were sort of like born here with.
And I love that point, as so much is us as parents. Like we want them to, get the education they need. Are they getting enough math? They're not reading yet, should they? And we're so filled with
Right.
anxiety to help and support our children, which is beautiful. But you have to understand that each child develops in their own individual way, in their own timing. And
Mhm.
just because maybe you're not seeing some of the things we're discussing doesn't mean that those changes aren't happening or
Oh,
that they're not at the right spot.
I agree,
There's a
because you
lot
can wake
of
up one day and it'll all be done.
exactly a lot of trust. I mean, one of my mantras is that this is not my child. This is a child of the universe or a child of God,
Right, right,
right?
right.
I'm just a guardian to
It
keep
does.
them
Yeah.
alive until he
You kind of have
matures.
this stewardship over them as for this one thing, and you're walking with them. And so that's just so beautiful. It's just such a beautiful way to think about it. It really is.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
think that that's
much,
key.
much different than mainstream.
It's stewardship. It's not control.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think within that stewardship, if we take on that, because I talk about stewardship a lot in our coaching, but if we take on that space of this is stewardship, and when we are a steward of something, it's kind of our responsibility to pray for them, look out for them, figure out what's going on with them, like all of those pieces. Otherwise, we are just in control. But if we're a steward, then it's a relationship rather than
Yes.
that's what I said, and
Yes.
this, I do find that at this point in time, a lot of parents ask me, like, I can't get them to obey. I can't get them to do this. And I say, all right, well, have you had a conversation with them? Do you talk to them about the things that you're frustrated about and see if you can come to some kind of like understanding? I do have to tell you something funny. Soraya is 12. She turned 12 in April. And she asked me yesterday, we're driving in the car. She said, like a lot of people get weird when they turn 13. Do you think I'm going to get weird? Said, not any weirder than you are now, my dear. Just let's keep walking. As long as we keep talking, we're good. We're in good shape. I just think that's such a beautiful space because they're self-aware at 12, but at 13, you're right at that tip of where the intellect is starting to be born. And so there are things that you're seeing that, like I said, you might like be able to see just a little bit of who that child is going to be.
And to reiterate a point you just made, at this age, connection is key.
I agree,
Keep
because
that.
they're turning in, and so you really want them to keep a little door open for your heart too, so that you can have that conversation.
And for them to know that even though you're having maybe more time apart, that you are always there for them, that they can always come to you and the family. You've got family meals and vacations, and they can come to you and talk, that you're always there to listen.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So let's talk about the general content for class 7.
Well, it
So
is
much.
all, I know there's so much content this year, but it's really exciting.
Yes.
And the overall theme is the Renaissance and rebirth. Everything this year is about exploration and discovery. Now that the 13-year-old has these new skills of critical thinking, for example, how are we going to use them? What is possible this year that wasn't before? So we're going to bring subjects like perspective drawing, where we're using tools to create really precise drawings that create that sense of depth, like 3D within a 2D piece of paper, for example. We're going to bring physics and chemistry to look at the world around us, the everyday world, in a new light. We did this last year, and we
But
really
right.
honed in on the emerging sense of observation as the class 6, the 12-year-old was able to notice details that they weren't able to before. But now we're going to take it one step further. And especially in chemistry, since their bodies are filled with all these new chemicals, it's perfect to
And
talk about,
everything that goes along with that, right?
yeah, what happens when, two substances interact with combustion or acids and bases combining, for example. And then speaking of the clashing of two, we're going to talk about geography, focusing on Europe and Africa, but also tying into the age of exploration and what happens when the old world meets the new world.
Right, right. And I think that's a beautiful space. I think that's a space that you start in like 4th and 5th grade when you're learning about your space around you and you're going to get crazy questions. I get definitely more questions in living in Florida than I would have in Arizona. Probably would have had the same in California, but questions about like, wait a minute, these borders are here, and what happened to the people after the borders were laid? But you can kind of quell that a bit in fourth and fifth, and then in seventh, you can let them ask all the questions because they have that emerging intellect, and you can say things like, I don't know, what do you think?
Exactly. Exactly. And it's about just presenting the facts in a neutral way and then letting them come to their own conclusions.
I
And it
agree.
really is fascinating, some of the discussions that go on.
I agree. I agree. We're going to talk about that a bit more in the second part, but I just wanted to bring that up here because I feel like it's such a we have, as adults, we have it just in our head exactly the way it should be, and we don't leave space often for those kids. And I mean, what's funny when I look back at all three of my adult children, they all three of them had a different worldview by the time we were done with high school than I had started out with, and it took me some time to catch up with them. And so it's so interesting to me when we allow that space of unfolding and not judging and allowing, well, if you want to think that, then it's okay. Let me give you some stuff on both sides to help you support that. But that's a process. It's a process that starts in seventh and eighth grade. And
It absolutely is a process. And if you think about, your own path to arrive where we are today, it was not a straight
right,
path. A lot of windings and backwards and forwards, and that's how you kind of have to bump around in order to find where the walls are and what feels
right,
good and what doesn't, what suits you and what doesn't, before you can find your way. And that's crucial, as you say, to allow the space for that.
right. And I think if we are too dogmatic in either direction, then it
Exactly.
hinders them. It does not help them. The best thing you could do is let's let them unfold, and if they're completely opposite from your worldview, continue with your family values and continue to show without telling them that they're wrong.
Yes. Yes.
Because so many of us had our teachers tell us we were wrong, right? Like I can remember teachers telling me that I was wrong, and me thinking, gosh, well, what does that mean about me? If I don't think the way this person thinks, what does that mean about me? That I came to a different conclusion.
Right. And that gets back to what we were talking about earlier of planting the seeds, letting them ripen. And then the child comes to the path when they're ready.
Right.
And it might look like your seed is going this way, that way, but
Right.
you keep shining the sun here, it's going to come here
It's gonna
on
figure.
its own.
I
On its
agree.
own.
I
Yeah.
completely agree with that. What are they doing in, we talked about science, we talked about history and geography and
Oh, yes. And
math.
so now,
Oh,
now that let me mention physiology. Now that the child is turning inwards, we are looking into our own bodies and those processes from like the digestive system, the system, circulatory system. How do our eyes and ears work?
right.
And
Reproductive
oh,
system.
and the reproductive system. I mean, there's so much going on and so much change going on in the students' bodies right now. So the body and understanding that aspect is really important. And you asked about math, and math, as they are developing more of these critical thinking, abstract thinking skills, we are diving deeper into geometry, moving away from the beautiful geometric, like art pieces from last year, into more the geometric constructions themselves. And also, we are bringing pre-algebra
Mhm.
and beginning to solve for the unknown, right? It's a whole new level of thinking that they're now capable of.
Right.
And too, as the dreamy childhood years are fading away, we still want to keep that spark of wonder alive. And that's done primarily through creative writing and art, which are also
Right.
huge pieces
Right.
this
Right. Right.
year.
They are big pieces. I agree. I think it's so funny. I was thinking about math. I was thinking about my number 4 child. I just remember he was like, why they gotta put letters in here? Like, why? Like, This just seems like so wrong. And I tend to get that same conversation from those kids that are really holding on to that last bit of age 12 before they move into age 13. And sort of
Here's a little tip, parents. Instead of a letter, you can put a question mark.
You could put a question mark. You could.
Or just a circle.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's in the circle? What number is there? You don't have to go to
Absolutely.
X right away.
Absolutely. I think that's a perfect, that's awesome. I just remember him being like, letters in here too. Like, what is this about? No, I agree. You could put whatever you want there, but it's that space of like, we're going to the next place and you're coming. You're coming. I'll help you, but you're coming. So I think that's a beautiful space to be in. Okay, Miss Andrea, we are going to be done with this portion. I want to dive into tackling some deeper history questions that I get often in the next portion. So I want to thank you so much for being here. Again, Miss Andrea is our 7th grade teacher in the 2023-2024 school year. And hopefully you'll be with us for a long time because we love you to pieces. So thank you so much.
Find our Patreon at Ariel's Light. So Ariel's Light, if you haven't heard already, is the ministry that we started this year. Interfaith, so we welcome people of all faiths to come and experience and converse and really get to know this conscious parenting space. I see it as a space for people that might be deeply into their religion, like being able to go deeper in what that parent-child relationship means. And then people that are just trying to figure out, like, what does this inner work journey mean to me? In that space, and I've been there, trying to figure out, well, how do I bring what's welling up inside me to my children so that they aren't lost in confusion, so that they actually have this piece of goodness and beauty that Steiner always talks about. So the ministry has roots of anthroposophy, and we will be talking about things from an anthroposophical standpoint, but also really bringing you good content that you can bring into your life right now.
The vision of education has changed. More and more families have seen the benefits of homeschooling and are choosing a different life. Our desire is to bring together qualified teachers with families who are yearning for a Steiner-centered experience. We are a worldwide virtual school. Our goal is to give every child the opportunity to have a true Steiner-centered education at an affordable price, all while allowing families the flexibility to follow their passions. We invite you to attend our question and answer or send us an email with all your questions and start envisioning how Seasons of 7 can help your family live their best life.